All right. Well, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and for those of you that are still awake, well, I guess after Halloween. So, I just wanted to take some time to show you a little bit about a new toy that I have. Well, I guess it's not really that new of a toy, but I did want to give a shout out to Sequential for providing this for me. It is the Prophet 5 Revision 4. Now, for those of you who have any background in music, particularly in classic rock, this is actually a completely legendary synthesizer, which was originally released in 1977. And the equally legendary Rick Wakeman has a pretty long-standing history with the Prophet. He was he actually pretty much came up with the name or suggested the name to Dave Smith at Sequential, and it is one of the former Yes keyboardist's favorite legendary synthesizers of all time. And one of the things that is particularly interesting about this synthesizer is that polyphonic synths were not basically they didn't exist in any meaningful commercial way. This was the first. Before that, they were monophonic, meaning that you could only play one note at a time. And I have actually wanted one of these for an extremely long time. I've had the good fortune to play with various previous revisions of the synthesizer, and of course they stopped making them years and years and years ago. They just stopped making them because apparently digital synthesizers were new, and for a long time analog synthesizers were not cool, and I used to have a whole bunch of them, and I had to sell them all back when I was in college. And now that I'm a successful TV producer, I've started to collect them again, except they're worth a lot more than they were then. Boy, if I'd have known then what I know now. But now I have one, and a big shout out to Justin and the rest of the crew at Sequential. They actually supplied this one for me so that we can use it for season 3 of Go Nitro for the Go Nitro theme and some of the other incidental music for the show. Now, what some of you may not know is that I actually write I write all the music for Go Nitro in the show, because I used to do a lot of jingles and underscore and that sort of thing. And now that I have my own show on the air, from a purely vanity point of view, and also just because sports is an exciting thing to write music for, I am actually the one that is responsible for writing the music for the show. So this is a long time geekdom, if you will, for me, and so that's basically what we're going to talk about tonight. Or rather, I'm going to talk for a little bit, and then I'm going to shut up and play, because there's a few things about this that I've heard that I personally don't agree with. Also, I'd like to apologize in advance for the headset looking like the ShamWow guy here. The ShamWow experience is not what I was looking for. But the thing is when you're trying to play music and talk at the same time, lavalier mics don't work particularly well, because when you move your head, so too does the direction of your mouth toward the microphone. So for the time being, until I can think of something better, the ShamWow look is what it is, and at the very least, I'm not wearing an apron. But most importantly, you're able to hear me, and I can move around and play. So before we go into it, I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that have annoyed me, which I often do if you watch any of my videos. It seems to me that on YouTube, everybody has an opinion, and a lot of the time they have no idea what the hell they're talking about. Now, some could say that is the natural state of the internet. I personally don't agree. One of the things that you see going on ad nauseum is, for those of you that don't know, obviously there are different versions of the Prophet 5. The first one came out in 1977, which was made for a little while, and then there were some issues and things that needed to be improved and fixed, and the manufacturing processes needed to be more reliable, so there are different versions of the Prophet 5. So there's the revision 2, there's the revision 3, and then it went out of production for a very long time. So they made that in the 80s up to the mid 80s basically, and then they stopped. So the only way that you could get one of these was either to rent one from somebody that had one, or if you were lucky enough to be a collector and you had one, but they required a considerable amount of work to find if you were lucky enough to find one, and they also required, a lot of the time, would have been sitting in somebody's garage or storage or a studio for 15, 20, 25, 30 years and hadn't been used, which means that sometimes you'll need to open up the boards, clean out the pots. There may be other things that don't work properly and need to be replaced. And, we're talking about effectively a 40-year-old synthesizer. Now, one of the very cool things that Dave Smith of Sequential, the founder of Sequential, did is he decided that he was going to reissue the Prophet 5. And it sounds identical in every way to the previous Prophets, particularly the Revision 2 and Revision 3. And again, as with previous models, a lot of the issues and difficulties with previous models have been smoothed out. Now, to be fair, the Revision 3 or the Revision 3.3, if you prefer, most of the issues had pretty much been worked out of the Prophet 5 design. And the thing you need to understand is that you got to remember there wasn't really any such thing as commercially available polyphonic synthesizers. There were none that were really available that you could afford and were readily available. The Prophet 5 was the first. I mean, there were other, but as far as a playable, available synthesizer that could play more than one note at a time, the Prophet 5, for all intents and purposes, was the beginning of that game. So you have to give the engineers a little bit of a break, considering that, this was not done. So that being said, because people don't think of these things on the internet and they just tend to, run their mouth like a gas-fed duck and spew bullshit all over the place, there's a few things that I tend to hear a lot. One is that, by the way, the one behind me that I'm going to play and demonstrate for you is the Prophet 5 Revision 4. So that's the commercially available one right now and is the one that Sequential has supplied to me. So one of the things that the greeblies on the internet like to whine about is they say that the Revision 4 does not sound anything like the original Prophet 5, and it has a completely different sonic character. To that I call a steaming pile of grade A bullshit. It sounds absolutely identical. It sounds no different. It has the same sonic character. The chips are all the same basically, and there is no difference. And there are people that'll swear up and down and sideways and left and right, and all you can do is just let those people wreathe in their own stupidity. Now, you could turn around and say, well, Corey, have you ever actually listened to or played the other revision synthesizers? Well, yes, of course I have. I've played the Revision 2, I've played the Revision 3, and I've had the good fortune to spend some time with the original, what would now be called the Revision 1. I don't know how you can have a Revision 1. If it's the first one, it's not a revision. But be that as it may, I have had the good fortune to play all 4, including this one. There's no difference. Now, one of the things that may contribute to the opinion that the Prophet 5 Revision 4 does not sound anything like the previous ones is memory. And by this I mean, you got to remember that they stopped making the Prophet 5s in the mid-80s. So most of the guys that would have had Prophet 5s back in the day would have actually been listening to their recording or their signal path through analog synthesizer or analog amplification means, and that would typically mean tube-based. Now, tube, because it's not electronic, is going to have a completely different sonic character. Now, even if you have a transistor-based amp or a signal path, it's still going to be going largely through a predominantly analog path. So that is actually going to color your sound. And particularly if you're going to be going out to tape, which in the 80s you would be going out to 2-inch tape or 1-inch tape or 1/4-inch tape or well, basically you would be going out to tape. So you're going through an analog path all the way to the end. That is going to affect the character, and it is going to make your sound quite a bit warmer. And so if you take a Rev 4, you're probably not listening to it on analog equipment, and so it's going to sound different. Yet, for whatever reason, these brainiacs on the internet, you never seem to know what they do you? You know, they always seem to be these self-proclaimed experts that have a basement studio, and yet I can't see any of their credits on an album. Can you? Fuck no, I can't. But the thing is you can't actually, they will sit there and they will argue, but the reason that it probably sounds different is because we are in 2021 here, and we are going to be listening to most of our stuff digitally, and that is going to change the sonic character of your synthesizer and anything that's going through your pipeline. And that's something that conveniently people don't tend to either want to say, or they don't notice it, or I don't know. People are idiots. That's all I can say about it. I could say a lot more about it, but I'm not going to. So that's one of the things that I wanted to really get over, is that the Prophet 5 Revision 4 sounds identical. It is absolutely the same. It has the same wonderful, haunting character that all of the Prophet systems have, like the Prophet 5, Prophet T8, Prophet 10. And one of the really cool things that, I haven't done this yet, but Dave Smith has actually come out with an expansion board. So you can basically open up your Prophet 5, and for under $1,000, you can basically turn it into a Prophet 10. And one of the reasons that the Prophet 5 is called the Prophet 5 is because it can handle 5 voices at a time. Now, obviously, newer synthesizers can handle more notes than that, and then you get something called note stealing. So once you have 5 notes and you hit another one, it's actually going to supersede whatever note that you'd hit, and then whatever new note you hit will actually steal a note from another one, right? Because it can only have 5 notes at a time. That is also something that gives it its character, but you know what? So is the Prophet 10. The Prophet 10 is more or less the same synthesizer. It has the same architecture. For the most part, there's not really any difference. But a lot of people want the legendary Prophet 5. And one of the cool things is that instead of having to buy a whole new synthesizer or buy a second Prophet 5 and daisy chain them, you just have to buy this one board for, I think, $8.99 or whatever it is. It's very, very easy to put in. And then you have those additional voices right there. So you can either hold 10 notes down at a time, which can make a real difference, or you can actually split your sound. So you can actually have 5 on one and 5 on another, and you're not actually going to overload it. So these are some very cool things. I'm going into probably more detail than I need to, and of course the point of this is to show you. But before I get into that, I would like to just talk a little bit about some of the nice things that an analog synthesizer can do that a digital synthesizer cannot. Now, for those of you that are already in all this stuff, this is Fisher-Price stuff for you, so you don't need to worry about it. But if you're just getting your feet wet, this is one of the things that's very, very interesting, and that is a lot of digital synthesizers, as it were, are what one might call romplers. So they will have pre-recorded waveforms of existing instruments, or they might be a granular-based. Basically, it's a recording of a real instrument or a real something that is then modified. Now, I'm oversimplifying it quite a bit, but what that means is whenever you hit a note, you can hit a note 28 different times and it will be exactly the same. Now you can program modifications into those notes if you want to, but by and large you are getting a recording that is having some parameters programmed to change. It's effectively triggering a recording, and this is going to create a somewhat static quality for the most part. Now, what's interesting about analog synthesizers is they don't have a computer in them. I mean, they do in the sense that to just make sure that timings and various other things trigger the way they should. But as far as the actual generated sound, it's actually generated by voltage alone. So the more voltage, the more of a waveform you get, the more volume you get, the more of a sound you get, and the less voltage, the less of a waveform and sound that you get. Again, I'm oversimplifying this quite a bit. I will do some other videos where I go into the more technical end of things for those of you like me that like to muck around with a soldering iron and dick with this kind of thing. But just for the purposes of this, I'm just going to leave it at that. But what's nice about these analog synthesizers, these systems, is because it fluctuates with very, very small voltages, much like a piano or a violin or a trumpet or whatever, every time you hit, particularly a stringed instrument, every time you hit a piano key, every time you play a note on a violin or any kind of stringed instrument, the vibration is always going to be slightly different, right? Because it's an organic sound. So it's never going to behave exactly the same way each time. So you're always going to get there's always these things and vibrations and voltages and things that you're not going to get exactly the same sound. The other thing about a lot of analog units, particularly the Prophet 5, is that they're all handmade, right? They're not cranked out at some factory in China where they're punching out boards. You can open it up and you can see where the circuits are, and you can see the capacitors and the various chips that are actually soldered to the board. You can actually work with it in a way that you couldn't in a very long time ago. You could, like when I was a kid, my dad used to take my brother and I to Radio Shack, and it was like the bulk barn, right? You know, you get your candy, and what we used to do with our allowance is we would go to Radio Shack back in the days of Radio Shack, and we would get breadboards, these big ugly brown boards, you know, that have holes in them, and then we would get, you know, capacitors and resistors and those sorts of things, and then we would build stuff. And you could actually go in a Radio Shack, and you'd have these little bags, and you'd have a little sheet, and then you'd say, oh, I want so and so many resistors of so many ohms, and I want so and so many capacitors of so many ohms, and I want all these things, and then you would build stuff. Can't do that now. Now it's the Source or whatever. In Canada, I don't know what it's called in the United States. I mean, I guess what was left of Fry's, and that's it. But this is old school, so you can go in and muck with it, and every time you do it, you get a completely different, wonderful sound. And that is one of the things that I really like about it. It's not, and people play it in a different way now, right? It's not as though people are trying to emulate exactly real instruments. It's more, now it's kind of a way to get completely new sounds or get the essence of something. Whereas in the 70s and 80s, this was really the only way that you could get any sound out of it. So if you didn't have an instrument, you did your damnedest to try to get out of this. But it's so much more than that. So let's move over to the second camera and get cracking on this beautiful piece of kit here that Sequential has given me. So now we're on our second camera, and you can see that we have everything all here. And this is real wood, by the way. It's beautiful. I believe it's walnut. I'll have to double check on that, but it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful piece of kit. So what I want to do, which is I guess somewhat ironic because I spent the whole time with preamble about how you don't need to emulate a real instrument and whatever, but you get this wonderful sonic quality that is sort of ethereal, and I really like it. So I'm actually going to load a patch that I made, which is sort of a almost like a flugelhorn kind of soft brass patch. So we'll just load that here, and I'm just checking my reverb here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into my maybe it would help if I went on the right bank. 121 is the bank here. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to modify my attack a little bit, right? And this is one of the nice things about voltage is effectively, so if I'm going to actually just a little quickie here. So if I turn my attack to 0, little synthesizer 101 here, if I turn my attack to 0, what happens is, if you can hear this, you should be a bit in there, I'll turn that up a little bit for you. See how it almost sounds like a Morse code. It has a very hard, it has an extremely hard attack. It's not coming from 0 to 100, it's at 100, so it's almost like a beep. Oops. But if I turn around and I take the attack and right, so I'm basically giving it a full amount of voltage essentially. Whereas if I take my attack and I turn that up, it actually will take longer for that note to go from 0 to full volume. So now, hear how it's not as aggressive. And I might actually want to do that a little bit more if I wanted to do like a flugelhorn type thing. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust my decay a bit. And my sustain. And my release. So see, it's not as abrupt the way it stops. I'm actually going to turn the decay. Turn that down. So now I can get these really nice, really nice sounds here. So, and again, there's a little bit of performance going on here too, right? Because with these nice performance wheels, if you are, you do have to be gentle with it, but you can get these nice articulations. So. So I can adjust these. I'm actually going to start that again. I'm going to adjust my attack a little bit more. I'm going to reduce my attack a little bit. There we go. I'm going to bring the mod wheel down. Bring it down more. There we go. So this gives you a little bit of an idea. I mean, I'm just doing it really quickly on the fly. And of course, I'm doing it live. So now I'm not going to yammer so much. And I'm going to show you some of the nice things that you can get, both with reverb and without. Some of the patches are mine. I'm not going to go into a lot of programming in this particular video. To be fair, a lot of the fun in this and a lot of the reward of the Prophet 5 and analog synthesizers in general is the programming that you do on your own. But the presets that come with it have a wonderful musicality to them, and they can be a really good jumping off point while you're learning. So I'm actually going to go through some of the different patches, and I'm not going to talk too much. I might add the odd commentary here and there, but basically my main goal is just to give you an idea of what kind of sounds you might be looking at. So there's a reason why there's a lot of videos that say no talking. I will, of course, do some kind of concerts, if you will, where I'm just playing so you can judge for yourself. And some of them will be better than others because, of course, it is live. But I just want you to hear some of the nice things that the Prophet 5 is capable of. I don't really want that sound. That's a nice one. Ah, that's kind of annoying. Yeah, some of the sounds are a little annoying. Don't worry, I'll hit upon something that sounds okay. Whoa, kind of George of the Jungle here. But not what I'm looking for. It's kind of a nice 80s brass going on here. Kind of Terminator 1-ish. Actually, one of my favorite bits from the first Terminator movie is this kind of repeating sequence, which obviously he wouldn't have played. He probably ran it through like a Poly 600 or something, but it kind of went like this, if I can remember. No, that was from Terminator 2. What was it? I'm trying to remember. Terminator 2. Well, Terminator 2 was sort of... That was kind of cool. I can't remember the one. I guess it must have been not that much of my favorite. But yeah, I get this nice. And again, here's that attack again. Nice, pure, haunting sound. The other thing that's kind of nice you can do too is, I mean, I know normally you would layer this, but sometimes it's kind of cool to do things live, and it's nice if you take a piano or something on it. Oh, some resonance too. Ah. Wow, very Rush, Geddy Lee. Whoa. That's kind of cool. Vangelis-y. Turn it down, it's a little loud. It's really nice. get you can actually get pretty cinematic with this, to be honest with you. Let's see, this kind of. That's really nice. What else? Whoa. I actually don't really like that wobble. It's kind of a pipe organ almost, isn't it? It's like the day after Halloween. And what's nice about this is it doesn't sound exactly like a pipe organ. It kind of has the spirit of it. So you almost have this almost impressionistic quality. I think I have a pipe organ on here somewhere. Yeah, it's just like a cheap digital piano that I have here. There's not a whole lot of sounds on here. Here we go. So here is kind of a nice baby. This is a more realistic pipe organ. I've played real ones, like nice, big, beautiful Montreal-built Cassavants, but, you know, this is a little bit more like a so-called realistic one. It has a reverb on it. As opposed to I actually kind of like the synthesizer kind of Prophet 5 analog version because it's a little less clinical, and it almost sounds angrier in a way. There's a sonorous quality to it. It's almost sinister, which there is with the sample. I mean, this on the Korg. It is a sample of a real pipe organ, but it's also a recording, so you're not getting the quite the same. As opposed to you know what I mean? Different feel, different kind of idea. But there's a little bit more imagination, if you want to call it that. And then you got stuff that's interesting that's like sort of like this almost like a, I don't know what you'd call it. This kind of a, I guess this is a steel drum supposed to be. Almost sounds like bells. What else have we got in here? Again, right now we're just sort of screwing with the presets here. Whoa, that's kind of weird. Whoa, I have a little goof there. This is kind of interesting. It's not quite a electric piano. It almost has a Yamaha DX7 feel to it. Although when this originally came out, the DX7 hadn't come out yet. It's kind of interesting. What else have we got? Anything else? Whoa. Almost like Doctor Who. Old school Doctor Who. That almost sounds like the Peter Davidson era or the Tom Baker era. I'm going to turn that up because this sounds a little quieter. It's actually really nice. What else have we got here? Whoa. What else have we got? Cirque du Soleil. That's kind of nice. What else have we got? Yeah. Ow. Kind of nice, sort of a nice pure sound. Nice low end. Also kind of Vangelis-y. that's kind of weird sounding. What else do we have? Also, my ass is falling asleep. There we go. Ow, that's loud. Sounds like a Nintendo game. Or, maybe we could go. Sounds like a light cycle from Tron. Lower. Where is my user? No. What else? This is an emergency. Some Jerry Anderson action here. Wouldn't surprise me if they used a Prophet 5 for that. What else have we got? Well, that's kind of cool. This is supposed to be some kind of a plucked, sort of a plectra kind of instrument, almost like a clavinet, I guess. Actually, no, this would work better without reverb. Let's turn this, we'll turn that shit off. There we go. I'll turn the reverb back on. I like reverb. What's this? That's interesting. Almost sounds like never-ending story type stuff. Or labyrinth. I guess this is supposed to be a harpsichord almost. Oh, made a mistake. I guess this is almost like an electric guitar. It's sort of like a drawbar organ. kind of Rush-esque. Oh, that's kind of nice, almost like a water drop. Very similar to my patch, kind of a warm brass. Harmonica. Yeah. Back to the ones. Oof, low. This almost has kind of a Wendy Carlos, almost a Mogish kind of feel to it. That's kind of cool. And let's see. Yeah. Nice, powerful synth type brass. Probably better if we had more than one note. That's kind of cool. Kind of nice. This is almost like a string. I'd like to get rid of a bit of the wobble though. We'll adjust the frequency a bit. That's very Doctor Who here. What else we got? That's actually really nice. That's really nice. My earpiece is falling out of my ear again. There we go. Come on, earpiece. In you go. This is a nice one. Nice low end. It actually kind of works nicely as a nice low. I want to switch this to piano actually. There you go, this is nice. You know, I've been hiding behind the reverb for a while. Let's turn this off and see what we're looking at here. And try out the piano first. Obviously, this is for the Prophet, but we'll see. That sounds so digital. Let's see what we've got without reverb. Yeah, kind of 80s. This is kind of cool. kind of nice. Like this nice wow wash. I also tend to play standing up, so it's getting weird sitting down and doing it, but there's only so much space I have for the camera, so I'm kind of doing the wee willy winky thing. That's kind of nice. One day after Halloween, they're already selling Christmas crap. Anything Christmassy in here? I mean, they'll be inundating us with it soon. Well, they're already. I went into Home Depot the other day. They're already selling fucking Santa Claus type guys. All right, well, we may as well jump on a bandwagon here, right? There's an example of note stealing there. I hit more than 5 notes at one time. Hit a bum note and it went, I'm going to take your note for you. Fuck you. That's exactly what it did. Whereas the newer unit is not going to do that. But you're also not going to get the same sonic quality. But you know what? I'm going to do more of these. So I think that pretty much gives you an idea to start with, especially given it's now, well, what time is it? I don't know. Let's check my... Holy crap, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. Well, we're all going to hell, aren't we? Well, we should probably wrap this up. So that pretty much gives you an idea and a one way to kill time, I suppose. So that's one of the things, this is why I like the Prophet 5. I just wanted to do a little demo to give you an idea of some of the things that you could do with it. I'm going to do more of these live streams. I won't lie, this is kind of a test of my live stream setup, and was tearing my hair out trying to get the audio to kind of work in stereo because it was showing up in OBS as mono for some reason, and I was just dealing with all kinds of things. You know, you'd think with all my years in broadcast that this wouldn't happen, but you know, there's so many things in the computer it can be, so I finally got it working. So these will get a little bit more polished as time goes on, and I enjoy doing these live streaming things. Helps keep my skills sharp, such as it is. Don't know how well anybody can play at 4 o'clock in the morning, but you get a pretty good idea. So anyway, hope you kids enjoyed it, and I will see you sooner than you think. Have a good one. And it would probably help if I actually took this thing. I have this funky little Stream Deck here, and I'm still kind of working on getting it going. So what happens if I hit this button